At 400 kilometers above Earth, something impossible is floating in silence. Not a satellite, not a spaceship. A city-sized machine built piece by piece over decades by former enemies. This is the International Space Station. A $150 billion project. That was never supposed to exist. And once it was built, it could no longer stop. The story of the ISS does not begin in space. It begins on Earth during the Cold War, when space was not about science, but about dominance. The United States and the Soviet Union raced toward the stars, each launch a political message, each failure a national embarrassment. Space was the ultimate high ground, and cooperation was unthinkable. For decades, both sides built their own stations. America had Skylab. The Soviet Union had Mir. Separate systems, separate ideologies. Two visions of the future, never meant to meet until history intervened. When the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia's space program stood on the edge of extinction. Decades of knowledge, thousands of engineers, all at risk of disappearing. The United States faced a choice: let a rival fall or turn a former enemy into a partner. What followed was one of the most unexpected alliances in modern history. In 1998, the first module of the International Space Station was launched. Built in Russia, powered by American systems, connected later by Europe, Japan, and Canada. 5 space agencies, 15 nations, 1 orbit. The ISS was not just a station, it was a political experiment. Piece by piece, the station grew. Modules launched separately, then assembled in orbit by astronauts moving at 17,000 miles per hour. No room for mistakes. 1 wrong bolt, 1 failed seal, and lives would be lost. The station expanded into a massive structure, larger than a football field, weighing over 400 tons, and moving faster than a bullet. Every 90 minutes, it circles the Earth, 16 sunrises a day. Inside, astronauts live in microgravity. They float, they sleep strapped to walls, and they eat food that never falls. Every system is artificial: air, water, temperature. The ISS does not forgive errors. Everything must work all the time. And that costs money, a lot of money. Over its lifetime, the ISS has cost more than $150 billion. Launches, maintenance, upgrades, each year adds billions more. Yet no country can simply walk away. Because once humans moved into orbit permanently, space stopped being optional. Experiments conducted on the ISS changed medicine, materials, science, physics. Without gravity, the rules change, and those discoveries cannot be made on Earth. But science was only part of the reason. The ISS became a symbol, proof that cooperation was possible, that nations could build something together, that none could build alone. Yet behind the symbolism, problems were quietly growing. The station was aging. Designed for 15 years, and it has been operating for over 2 decades. Metal fatigues, systems degrade. Micrometeorites strike constantly, every year in orbit, pushes the station closer to its limits. Still, the ISS remains occupied, always, because once humans leave, returning becomes far more difficult. Orbit is unforgiving, and abandonment has consequences. What began as a symbol of peace slowly became a dependency. Governments rely on it, scientists rely on it, space agencies rely on it, and shutting it down is far more dangerous than keeping it alive. Above Earth, the ISS continues its silent journey, a machine that cannot land, cannot stop, and cannot simply be turned off. But the greatest risks of the ISS are not in the past, they are still ahead. Because the higher humanity builds, the harder it becomes to come back down. A machine that must never sleep. Living aboard the International Space Station is not heroic every day. Most days are routine, maintenance, repairs, monitoring systems that cannot fail. Because in orbit, even small problems become deadly. There is no rescue crew waiting nearby. If something goes wrong, the astronauts are on their own. 400 kilometers above Earth, help is ours. sometimes days away. And space does not wait. The station is constantly under attack, not by enemies, but by the environment itself. Micrometeoroids travel faster than bullets. Even paint flecks can punch holes through metal. Every impact is logged, every scratch is inspected, because one unseen crack can become catastrophic. Radiation is another silent threat. Outside Earth's protective atmosphere, astronauts are exposed to levels of radiation that would be dangerous on the ground. Over long missions, this increases cancer risk and causes cellular damage. The ISS is safe enough, but never safe. Then there are the systems, air recycling, water purification, power generation. Nothing is redundant enough. If one system fails, another must instantly take over. If two fail, there is no third chance. Over the years, the ISS has come dangerously close to disaster. In 2007, a computer failure knocked out multiple control systems. Astronauts lost access to key functions. Backup systems kicked in just in time. In 2018, a tiny hole was discovered in the station's hull. Air was leaking, slowly, silently. No one knows exactly how it happened. In 2021, Russia's Nauka module accidentally fired its thrusters. The entire station began spinning. For minutes, astronauts fought to regain control. If they had failed, the ISS could have torn itself apart. The world watched quietly, because these incidents are rarely advertised. Despite the risks, crews continue to rotate in and out, 6 months at a time, sometimes longer, because once humans commit to permanent presence in space, leaving becomes dangerous. Skills degrade, systems decay, a vacant station becomes unstable. The political side is just as fragile. The ISS is operated by countries that are often in conflict on Earth, sanctions, wars, diplomatic breakdowns. Yet in orbit, cooperation is mandatory. American astronauts rely on Russian propulsion systems. Russian modules depend on American power. Neither side can operate alone. This dependency was once a feature. Now it's a vulnerability. As geopolitical tensions rise, questions grow louder. What happens if cooperation collapses? Who controls the station? Who pays? Who decides when it ends? Financially, the ISS is a burden. Billions are spent every year just to keep it operational. Money that could fund new missions, new stations, new technology, yet shutting it down is far more expensive. Deorbiting the ISS safely would cost billions more. And if done wrong, debris could rain down across Earth, so the station remains, extended again and again. Every few years, its retirement is delayed because there is no clean exit. If this story made you stop and think, take a moment to support the video, like it, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Megaphiles TV for more deep dives into the projects shaping our world behind the scenes. Your support helps these documentaries exist. Behind the scenes, space agencies are quietly preparing for the future. Private companies are building replacements, commercial stations, tourism platforms, corporate laboratories. The ISS is slowly becoming obsolete, but it cannot be abandoned until something replaces it. The gap is too dangerous. There is also the issue of space debris. Thousands of objects orbit Earth, defunct satellites, fragments, broken equipment. The ISS must constantly adjust its orbit to avoid collisions. Each maneuver uses fuel that is limited. Every dodge shortens its lifespan, and yet astronauts continue their work, growing plants in space, studying muscle loss, testing materials for Mars missions. The ISS is a bridge between Earth and a future further out. But bridges are meant to be crossed, not lived on forever. And the longer the ISS stays in orbit, the more fragile it becomes. Because time, and even in space, always wins. The station was never designed to last this long. Every extension is a calculated risk, a gamble that maintenance can outrun decay. So far, it has worked, but physics does not negotiate. The ISS now exists in a strange state, too valuable to abandon, too old to trust, a triumph of cooperation, and a reminder of its limits. Above Earth, the station keeps moving, carrying experiments, carrying people, and carrying a future. That depends on what happens next, because the real question is no longer whether the ISS was worth the cost. It is whether humanity is ready to let it go. Too high to fall, too costly to end. At some point, every machine reaches the same question. What happens when it's time to stop? For the International Space Station, that question has no easy answer. Because the ISS was never designed to return, it cannot land, it cannot be reused, it cannot simply be shut down and forgotten. When its mission ends, the station must be destroyed. Deorbiting the ISS is one of the most dangerous maneuvers ever attempted in space. A 400-ton structure, traveling at orbital speed, must be guided safely back into Earth's atmosphere. If done correctly, it will burn up over a remote area of the ocean. If done incorrectly, debris could fall across populated regions. The margin for error is thin, and the responsibility is enormous. This is why the end keeps getting postponed. Official timelines shift. 2020 became 2024. 2024 became 2028. Now extensions reach into the next decade. Each delay buys time, but each delay also increases risk. Meanwhile, the ISS has become something more than a station. It is a training ground. Every astronaut heading to the Moon or Mars learns to survive aboard the ISS first. Life support systems, emergency protocols, psychological endurance. Without the ISS, long-duration spaceflight becomes far more dangerous. Private companies are racing to replace it. Commercial space stations are planned. Some promise tourism, others promise research. Some promise profit, but none yet exist at the same scale. Until they do, the ISS remains essential, even if it's aging, even if it's expensive, even if it's fragile. There is also a deeper reason the station cannot stop. Symbolism. The ISS is one of the few places where international cooperation never fully collapsed. Even during political crises on Earth, astronauts continued working side by side in orbit, sharing air, sharing water, sharing survival. In space, ideology fades quickly. Physics does not care who you are. Ending the ISS means ending that symbol. And symbols are difficult to dismantle. But time is relentless. Metal weakens, seals degrade, radiation accumulates. No amount of maintenance can stop aging forever. Every extension is a temporary victory, not a solution. Eventually, a decision will be forced, not by politics, not by budgets, but by reality. The station will reach a point where risk outweighs benefit, where maintenance becomes gambling, where staying becomes more dangerous than leaving. When that moment comes, the ISS will end the way it lived, moving fast, surrounded by silence. High above the world, it changed, a controlled fall, and yet the ISS will not truly disappear. Its legacy is everywhere, in medicines developed in microgravity, in materials used on Earth, in the knowledge that humans can live off-planet. It proves something once thought impossible. That cooperation can survive in the harshest environment imaginable. The ISS was not perfect, it was inefficient, expensive, risky, but it was real, and sometimes progress is not about perfection. It is about proving something can be done at all. Humanity built a $150 billion station in orbit, and once we died out, we couldn't stop. Because leaving space is harder than entering it, and every step upward makes coming back down more complicated. Above Earth, the International Space Station continues its endless orbit, a reminder of what humans can build together, and a warning about how difficult it is to let go. If you want documentaries that go beyond the headlines and uncover the real cost of the world's biggest projects, subscribe to Megaphiles TV, because the story doesn't end when construction is finished. That's when it truly begins.